In fact, in 2014, Nigerian opposition party, then the APC, were in the White House seeking for the same help on the same Christian genocide as a fallout of the Chibok girls. This is established. So what we should show in our own case in Nigeria is that we should show commitment and willingness to partner to eliminate the threat of terrorism, not completely...
Hello and what's up, guys? In this video, something shocking is happening right now. An Apc chieftain, Adamu Garba, has openly backed US President Donald Trump's claim that there is pure genocide going on in Nigeria. Yes, you heard that right. A top member of the ruling party is actually agreeing with Trump, saying the situation in Nigeria fits the very definition of genocide. In a tense interview with Trust TV, Adamu Garba recalled how back in 2014, APC leaders themselves went to the White House seeking help over what they called mass Christian killings. Now, years later, he says both Christians and Muslims are being wiped out in villages, men, women, and children, all gone without protection. He even warned that America has the right to step in under international law if Nigeria fails to act, hinting that the US could invoke its responsibility to protect and move in against terrorism. Garba is now urging the Nigerian government not to fight the US on this, but to work with them, admit what's happening, and negotiate responsibly before things get worse. Guys, I will let you watch this video for yourself so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already done so. Take a look, guys, and remember to share your thoughts after watching.
On the global front, China has finally spoken out against Washington's growing pressure on Nigeria. Beijing is warning the Trump administration to stay out of Nigeria's internal affairs, describing the U.S. genocide claim as a political excuse for interference. What does China's position mean for Nigeria's diplomatic standoff with Big Brother United States? Well, let's get some insight with former APC presidential aspirant and political commentator Adamu Garba II is joining us for tonight's conversation. Thank you so much for stopping by this evening. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much.
I mean, you've been quite vocal about this online. You've expressed your views. You've seen the glass half full, and you've described this as a necessary evil, quote unquote, so to say, that Nigeria needs. Why do you think this issue remains such a polarizing conversation, with some people talking about the ulterior motives of the United States and China just expressing that same sentiment earlier in the day about this being a pretext for some sort of interference that could lead to economic exploitation and a lot more?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is why it became a polarizing statement is because there is a religious connotation to it. Since if you look at Donald Trump's speech, he mentioned Christian genocide that naturally would trigger an impulsive response from the Muslim side. Meanwhile, when you look at the core issue that triggers the so-called Christian genocide was because Christians were the ones that made the report. Had the Muslim done the same thing, it could have been that they will also include Muslim genocide, Christian and Muslim genocide, but Muslim organization didn't go to report it. And that's basically where the issue is. And on China coming on board, it's just a factor of strategic rivalry. Wherever US goes to the west, China will naturally go to the east. But it has no any bearing upon the stand of the United States when they want to project their national interests. You've seen it historically. China opposed invasion of Afghanistan. It doesn't stop the United States from staying there for 20 years. Similarly, in Iraq, it doesn't stop them. In fact, most recently, the biggest, most strategic ally of China in the Central Asia is Iran. China vehemently, strongly stopped Trump or the US from invading Iran for whatever reason. Yet, you know, Trump bombed Iranian nuclear facility and nothing, they did nothing, absolutely. Look at Gaza. China was strongly against the genocide in Gaza, but they couldn't do nothing. So it's just strategic rivalry. So anybody that is thinking that if China is talking, it's like China is coming to fight on our behalf, should US decide to invade Nigeria, it's just making a maybe very...
Do you think this is a symbolic show of support and nothing more?
It's just symbolic show of support.
But some would say, listen, China has a lot to lose if United States does what it wants to do.
In fact, the truth of the matter is China also is feeling the pains of the economy of Nigeria like many other Nigerians, because they have several companies that operate in Nigeria that most of them are currently crying of not being paid for the services they have rendered. So I want you to believe that when you look at the Chinese policy globally, you will see that their response in Nigeria was purely out of strategic rivalry. It has no any basis in action. So should US decided to do anything, China will only issue strong press statements, you know, and then strong worded diplomatic messages, but yet do nothing. That's what it is. So we don't begin to see this as somebody that is coming to back us. Nigeria need to get its foreign policy acts together. The truth of the matter is, this government's foreign policy, as I mentioned earlier in one of my writings, is the laziest we have seen in the history of Nigeria. There is no activity. And any country that you don't send foreign representation in form of ambassadors, it's like you are rebuting them. It's like you don't recognize their sovereignty. And
you think if we had an ambassador in the United States, things would have turned out differently?
It would have been done, because this issue didn't start now. It started building up since February 2025. You know, the US delegation, like from the Congress, came to Nigeria 3 times to investigate and make our findings. They were in many places in Plateau and Benue. Although I saw some people are saying that they didn't go to Zamfara, but the people that invited them were the people of Benue and Plateau. Why didn't the Zamfara people and the Sokoto people and the Katsina people also go and invite them? They didn't do that. So they came on fact-finding mission. You don't have a foreign representation in that country. You don't have any intelligence to understand that this is actually what is likely going to happen. You now start a fire brigade approach after we have already been listed as a CPC, country of particular concern. So that you are just reactionary, because you are supposed to proactively respond to this and prevent the listing in the first place. The fact that we are listed as CPC means that they have already built.
We're recommended. Case. I don't think they've finalized the process yet.
Yes, in fact, the process was there. They sat today, they will sit tomorrow, they will sit next tomorrow. It's likely that by Friday they will pass.
You think it's a foregone conclusion?
It's a foregone conclusion.
But what do you make about the merit of the argument? Because you hear from ECOWAS, you hear from the National Assembly, you hear the federal government's response, you hear from the Chief of Defense Staff who say, listen, we have a security challenge. We do not have a genocide to deal with in this particular country. Why do you think this tag of genocide continues to stir such emotional reaction from people? Because Nigerians are divided between those who believe there's a genocide and those who categorically think it's an overstatement to say there's a genocide.
The truth of the matter is, the US president did not specifically mention genocide in his words. He said existential threat, that the Christians have existential threat in Nigeria. So we need to understand this word itself.
But other people who are parroting the Ted Cruz's and all the other lawmakers.
Ted Cruz have to do this because in addition to the bill that he is pushing, which he wants to garner support, he also wants to consolidate his Christian evangelical support base at home. So it's purely political. So we don't interpret what they are doing from the real action. So, and we have a security issue in Nigeria, and it started since 2009. Did we solve this problem? Did people stop dying? Don't we need American support? Don't we need international support? Don't we need Chinese? Don't we need Russians? Don't we need international support? We do need. Because ourselves, you cannot solve this problem. And Nigeria, especially Nigerian military, most of the senior leadership are trained in the US. Like especially the current service chiefs. They are all US trained. So they only know how to operate in the area of tactical and strategic operations with US weaponry. So should we build a resenting diplomatic row between Nigeria and the US, and they decide to sanction us and refuse giving us these weapons, how do you think we will find the banditry? So what I'm saying is, it is very important for us not to be emotive and impulsive. We have to be very pragmatic and realistic. We have to accept the fact that killings is happening, and that we have to accept the fact that we need help, and that we have to redirect the new attention of the US towards the bandits and the terrorists that are killing our people. That's what we should do. Not to categorically condemn them and say that the US is trying to come and invade the country and start killing us. That is not the case. Another thing again is that the US did not categorically say they are coming to invade. They say that this option is on the table. And in diplomatic relationship, if you become very irresponsible and unreasonable, you push your interest based on emotion. That's when you are actually attracting war.
But this intervention, tone is very important, isn't it?
Yes.
The way President Trump said it, the way Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of the Defense Department, or Department of War, as they call it now, said it. It didn't look like Nigeria's government was factored into the conversation. It's unsolicited intervention. And the big question is Nigeria not a sovereign nation? Can another nation just offer help unsolicited?
No. Nigeria has consistently sought for United States help. In fact, in 2014, Nigerian opposition party, then the APC, were in the White House seeking for the same help on the same Christian genocide as a fallout of the Chibok girls. This is established. The second thing again is that even most recently, we acquired $346 million worth of weaponry from the US, and we are trying to send our military personnel to go and train as a factor of diplomatic relationship between Nigeria and the US. And US has been consistently, in addition to other partners, listed as supporting countries to help us in eradication of terrorism. And don't forget, it is a United Nations Convention on Counterterrorism that empowers the United States to become the global front or focal point in fighting against terrorism. And wherever a word terrorism was defined in a given area, that means US have right to protect. They call it the responsibility to protect R2P. They have right to invoke that R2P to get into that country and destroy that terrorism.
Yeah.
So what we should show in our own case in Nigeria is that we should show commitment and willingness to partner to eliminate the threat of terrorism, not completely condemn a hand that is coming to help us and then put a motion forward. We can negotiate with them. We can tell them, give us the weapons responsibly. We can discuss with them and acknowledge that this genocide is taking place. Yes, they say Christian genocide. Now we can justify to them that, look, it's not only genocide, it's not only Christians, Muslims also are affected.
But do you agree with the categorization that it's a genocide?
I actually, when I look at the damages, when you look at the total number of the people that have been killed over time in Nigeria, and they are killed defenseless in villages, sleeping in their homes, then what can you call this, for God's sake?
You think there's a genocide?
I think it's actually pure genocide, because you just come and kill people, just like that. And this thing has been happening. Several villages in Katsina destroyed, several villages in Sokoto gone, several villages in Zamfara every day.
I mean, if you have to zoom out and consider the numbers in totality, one would say there is also a genocide in the United States.
Yes.
Much more than what is actually happening in Nigeria. There have been more attacks on worship centers, mosques, churches, synagogues in the US from 2000 to date, 3 times what has happened in Nigeria over the last 1.5 decades. I'm
not a lawyer.
Right.
I am not an international criminal attorney. I will not understand that, but I know that there is a difference between hate crime and genocide. Like what happened in Gaza, you are killing defenseless people, is called genocide.
Right. But the US disagrees. And thank you for bringing the Gaza point up, because the question is, there are a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to the United States foreign policy, especially when the interest is at play. Where is the same categorization on Israel when it came to Gaza, where you're talking about thousands of people killed within the space of just 2 years, right? Women and children, defenseless, as you've said.
Yes.
Where's the same anger? Where's the same categorization for Israel? Because they've not even admitted that what has happened in Gaza is a genocide. Ergo, the reason why people question their motive for coming to Nigeria, or at least focusing on Nigeria.
To be very candid with you, the United States foreign policy globally is driven strictly by self-interest. If it benefits them, even if the whole world is dying, they will justify it. You can see some places like Nigeria, they will come and accuse us for not practicing democracy. But there they are backing autocracies in other places where it fits them. In fact, in some places like Syria, they converted the #1 terror fighter, Al-Jolani, to Ashara and made him president. So it's all strategic interests. But you, as a country, you don't feed that strategic interest. If you come with emotion without pragmatism, without responsible approach, you are feeding the desire for them to exert and exercise this interest. So what you should have done is to find a very common ground, not to ever allow this diplomatic route to go high. Accept it and take ownership of whatever action they want to do, and then implement. But the situation whereby you rebuke, deny, condemn, you are further giving them to justify with their audience to come here in the interest of whatever strategic interest they are trying to target in Nigeria, to say that they are fighting to protect the Christians. Meanwhile, what they are doing is not actually fighting to protect the Christians. They actually have strategic interests. So to defeat them is to be very pragmatic and realist. You have to approach it the way it is. You have a problem. We also identify that this is a problem. We take ownership of this problem. What is that your strategic interest? Bring it on the table. Let's discuss it. We will take ownership. We will cleanse our country. But please, guys, we know you are superpowers, but we are good at our task.
So you're basically saying the President Tinubu should bend the knee and not act like a leader of a sovereign nation and basically kowtow to what the US wants.
No. What I'm saying is this. The president should be very pragmatic. Very, very pragmatic. You have to accept your weaknesses. Accepting weaknesses doesn't mean you are bending the knees. When you want to go and look for loan in another man's country, doesn't mean that you are bending the knees. You're actually accepting the weakness that you don't have enough money. That's not bending the knee.
Yeah, but it's not free money, is it?
It's not free money to be paid. Similarly, the aid they are going to give you in terms of military to confront the terrorists is not free. You are paying for it. But the fact that you acknowledge your weakness, it means that you are being pragmatic. This weakness has existed for 16 years. We cannot lie to ourselves that it doesn't exist. And don't forget, it started in a very small area in the northeast. And this now expanded to the northwest, to the north central, and then moving to the forest in the south. And then you tell me that this is not a weakness? This is a weakness. So if it is a weakness, as a president, accept it. When you accept it, own it. When you attempt to seek partnership based on strategic alliances. This is what I will do. This is what you said. This is what I accept. Please don't do this. It is a weakness. We have accepted there are killings in our land. Let's work together. But do not go and be confronting them, attacking them. You hate our country. You want to invade our country. You want to destroy us. You want to steal our resources. You want to steal our...
So you think
the
response of the Tinubu administration has been lackluster? What exactly?
Actually, to me, it's very amateurish. Right. Because it looks like there is a media diplomacy. You see several media aides issuing different frontline, center kind of statements. So you can't even coherently, articulate that what is the real position of this government regarding this issue. Because you see this one talking this way, you see that one talking this way, you see this one talking this way, you see that one talking this way. You see less of even foreign ministry acting. So what is the problem? This is a frontline something. This is something outside the border. Right. So why is it that you have only aides jumping around with their own instinct, issuing statements on behalf of a country without even coherent and articulated discussion? In foreign policy makes nation. And in the instrument of power equation, the first thing that comes within the 7 critical letters of instrument of power is diplomacy. You have to start with diplomacy. Dimefil, D-I-M-F-I-L. The dime itself, the D, start with diplomacy. If you don't get your diplomacy right as a nation, you have lost right to your sovereignty.
All right. Unfortunately, we have to go because we're completely out of time. But how do you see this ending in less than 20 seconds, if you can? Will it end in military intervention, or do you think they?
No, I don't think.
Shake hands.
I don't think there will be military intervention, but I think the government need to slow down and do something very more responsible, so that we don't avoid. Because even if there is no direct military intervention, there are some private military officers or companies that are currently bidding to invade Nigeria, so we should avoid that.
The remarks made by Apc Chieftain Adamu Garba have added a new dimension to Nigeria's already tense diplomatic situation with the United States. Garba's public support for Donald Trump's statement describing the crisis in Nigeria as pure genocide has reignited global debate on the country's worsening insecurity and the moral responsibility of its leadership. According to Garba, the scale of violence across communities in northern Nigeria, from Katsina to Zamfara and Sokoto, now fits the true definition of genocide. He emphasized that innocent Nigerians, both Christians and Muslims, have continued to lose their lives in repeated attacks, often in their homes and villages, with little or no protection. His message was clear: the situation is no longer a matter of religion, but humanitarian catastrophe. Garba also reminded the public that in 2014, when the APC was still an opposition party, its members sought international support from the United States on similar grounds. Today, however, the tables have turned, with Nigeria now listed by Washington as a country of particular concern. He argues that dismissing the US outright could be dangerous. Instead, he called for diplomatic engagement, one that recognizes the reality of ongoing violence while seeking constructive partnership to combat terrorism. He pointed to existing military cooperation, including a $346 million defense deal with the United States, as proof that both nations already share a strategic relationship. He further warned that the US, under the United Nations Responsibility to Protect Convention, has the legal right to intervene where acts of terrorism or mass atrocities are established. For Garba, Nigeria's best move is to negotiate responsibly, not reject assistance out of pride or politics. Internationally, China's sharp reaction to Washington's statement added a new layer to the story. Beijing warned the US against interference in Nigeria's international affairs, a move many analysts see as part of its broader strategic rivalry with Washington, rather than a show of genuine support for Nigeria. Experts have noted that while China's stance may appear sympathetic, its influence is largely symbolic, as history shows Beijing rarely translates such warnings into concrete action. At the heart of this diplomatic storm lies a serious question: how should Nigeria balance sovereignty with the urgent need for international help? Analysts insist that Nigeria's foreign policy machinery must act with coherence, consistency, and pragmatism. The government, they argue, needs to strengthen its diplomatic presence abroad, especially in Washington, to prevent reactionary policies and avoid future embarrassments. Ultimately, whether or not the term genocide applies, the painful truth remains: thousands of Nigerians continue to die in preventable violence. The debate now shifts from politics to accountability and from denial to decisive action. How Nigeria navigates this moment could redefine its image before the international community and determine whether global partners view it as a capable ally or a troubled nation in denial. That's where we will leave it for now. What are your thoughts on Adamu Garba's comments and the growing tension between Nigeria, the United States, and China? Do you think international involvement could help end the insecurity, or does it risk undermining Nigeria's sovereignty? Share your opinions in the comment section below. We do love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe to Naija Star News for more in-depth reports and balanced political analysis. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.